Welcome to the Brand Wise podcast, where we talk about the big branding moves that business owners are making and the why behind it. I'm your host, Jess Freeman, here to help you be wise and be bold. Have you ever launched something in your business that felt right at the time, but then only to realize like a few months later, no, actually, this doesn't fit me anymore. Like, this doesn't feel right. Maybe it was your website, a service you offered, a program that you poured your heart and soul into for several months. Or maybe, like Felly Day, it was your podcast. My friend Felly runs a content repurposing agency called FD Studio. She's been in business since 2019 and helps growing entrepreneurs increase their visibility without constantly cranking out new content, which I'm sure to most of us sounds amazing. So she's someone who knows what sustainable growth really looks like. And back in 2022, she launched her podcast called Felly's Fishbowl, a name that came from a mastermind she ran in the early stages of her business. It was a creative project she'd been dreaming about since like 2020. The name had personal meaning, it was nostalgic, and she thought it had some like branding potential. But by the time it finally launched, everything in her business had shifted. Her business had matured, her audience had changed, her services had changed, and the podcast she'd mapped out 2 years earlier didn't align with who she was or where she was going. And the results reflected that. She launched 20 episodes over the course of 6 months. She showed up, she created, she followed through, but the feedback was crickets. Fewer than 10 listens per episode. No DMs, no shares, no comments, no engagement. And for a business owner with a solid online presence and a very clear niche, it felt like silence. And silence, especially after years of being told to start a podcast, hits hard. And the thing is, Felly's show wasn't bad. She didn't fail. She built something that was still tied to a past version of herself. And that is something I see all the time with health and fitness professionals, which is why I wanted to talk about this today. Because you launch a brand or a site or an offer, you give it everything. But then as you grow, it starts to feel not right. Like you're wearing someone else's clothes. And you try to ignore that feeling because, it's already done. It's live. It's out there. But that friction and that disconnect doesn't go away. It starts showing up in small ways. You hesitate to link to your site. You add like a paragraph of context every time you send someone a link to your website. You don't love your lead magnet anymore. You're not really wanting people to join that offer, that program. You want to send them to this other thing, or maybe just, hey, buy my ebook and like that's it. And just like Felly, you might find yourself wondering why your audience feels disengaged. And the truth is that people can feel that misalignment, even if they can't name it. They're not like, she is not aligned with her offer. And they definitely don't say, wow, your brand feels 2 years behind. But they will say things like, I wasn't sure what you offered. I didn't realize you specialized in that. I thought you worked with beginners. And when that happens, it's not just a marketing issue, it's a branding issue, and more specifically, a clarity issue. Now, back to Felly. In early 2023, she made the decision to end season 1 of the show. She was also moving countries. It was the perfect timing to just kind of like pause and reevaluate, which is also a good thing for us to all do from time to time. She didn't know exactly what the rebrand of her podcast would look like. She knew she didn't want to quit the podcast. She just wanted it to finally reflect the business and brand she'd grown into. So she gave herself a 2-month timeline, which is really smart because I know a lot of people who are like, I'm just going to pause. And then the pause is just indefinite. She didn't wait for a perfect moment. She didn't overcomplicate it. She just made the call because deep down she knew if this was going to continue, if she was going to keep doing this podcast, it needed to feel aligned. So she changed the name, the cover art, the intro, the core messaging, and that all helped her change her energy around the podcast. She fully stepped into something she'd been resisting, the unprofessional movement. Felly had always been a little unpolished in the best way. She didn't follow the typical boss babe blueprint. She didn't wear makeup on camera. She didn't obsess over aesthetics. But it wasn't until she really owned that identity that her brand finally resonated with people. She stopped trying to look polished and instead started showing up as her full self. And she built a show around that, around giving people permission to show up without the costume, without the CEO voice, without the curated perfection, which thank you. And when she relaunched, the response was great. She got DMs from listeners, emails, people talking about the show, telling her how seen they felt, telling her how much the name and the energy around it resonated. And not long after, the podcast finally became a sales tool. Clients started mentioning the podcast on discovery calls and applications. They said it was a deciding factor in choosing to work with her. She went from invisible and no one talking about this podcast to influence. And all it took was getting real and realigning it so that it felt right with where she was at. Now, I want to bring this back to you. If you're a dietitian, a personal trainer, a physical therapist, and you've been feeling a little off in your business, it might not be burnout, or it might. It might be a brand that no longer fits. It might be an offer that no longer fits you. So I want you to ask yourself, does my brand and website reflect who I am now or who I was when I started? Do my offers feel like they fit where I'm at in life? Does my content still resonate with the clients I want? Is my message something I'm proud to share or something I feel like I have to kind of explain? Because if you are over explaining your offers or apologizing for your brand, you're doing extra work that your brand should be doing for you. That is the power of a rebrand, not just aesthetics, not just a vibe, but actual strategic clarity that frees you up to do the work you love without the friction. And you don't have to wait until things are bad to make a change. Some people wait till their business flatlines before they make a pivot, but you don't need to wait for a breakdown. And I would actually recommend you don't. You can rebrand because you're stepping into something bigger, more aligned, something that feels more true to you. That's what Felly did. And yes, she felt shame at first. She worried that rebranding after one season would make her look flaky, like she didn't know what she was doing, like she was throwing spaghetti at the wall. But what she realized is no one's paying as much attention to your business as you are. And I can really attest to this. I also rebranded a podcast previously. No one really noticed. No one cared. No one was upset or called me out after renaming my podcast. No one is tracking your every move. No one is judging your decision to change your podcast name or switch your services, update your brand colors. The thing that people do notice is clarity, they notice confidence, and they notice consistency. And when you show up in a way that's aligned, people feel it. And when you don't, they kind of feel that too. So if you've been thinking about a rebrand, but you're afraid of what people will say, this is your permission slip. It is okay to evolve. It's okay to pivot. It's okay to update your site, your content, your niche, your brand voice, any of it, all of it. You don't owe anyone the status quo at the expense of your own growth. Let me give you some signs that it might be time for a rebrand. You've outgrown your niche or you want to specialize more. Maybe you're like, man, I really love working with people with PCOS or diabetes, and like they are most of my clients, but I just am a little too nervous to go into that niche. Maybe your site traffic is fine, but the conversions are low. People regularly misunderstand what you do. Maybe you've changed how you work, but your brand doesn't reflect that. You're attracting the wrong people or repelling the right ones. If you are nodding along to what I just said, I don't want you to ignore it, because when you don't make the shift you need, you end up doing more work for fewer results. You overcompensate, you burn out, you resent making content. But when your brand feels good, everything flows. And I have said this so many times when people ask about my own rebrand and my own niching down. Everything got easier when I niched down. Everything, like things became fun again. It became so much faster to create content. And Felly said that the most rewarding part of her rebrand wasn't just the results, it was hearing from women who said her show gave them permission to stop performing and to just be. And in health and fitness, where so many of us are told to show up a certain way, whether we're supposed to sound clinical or to look fit or to be aspirational, that kind of permission is very powerful. One of my favorite quotes from something that Felly told me is, "You pay for my brain, not my wardrobe." And as a t-shirt obsessed person, I love that and I say amen. And I know that's exactly what you bring to the table too. Your clients are hiring you for your expertise, your guidance, your support, your vision, not because your brand matches some cookie cutter standard. No, so what if your brand actually reflected your genius? Not just your credentials, but your point of view, your lived experience, your personality, your quirks, your beliefs. A good brand is much more than just a logo. It's a lens and a way of helping people see you and choose you faster. And if you're ready to step into that kind of alignment, I would love to help. My website audits are made for this kind of situation. When you're not sure what's off, but you know something isn't working, so you can get actionable recommendations on what to keep, what to change, how to align your website with the version of your business that you're stepping into, and whether that's a full rebrand in the future or just some tweaks for now, you will walk away with some clarity and a path forward. Because again, when your brand fits, business gets easier, clients get more fun, you get more energized in your business. And most importantly, you stop shrinking yourself to fit something that you've already outgrown. Are you a squiggle or a square? Go to justcreatives.com/quiz to find out where your brand ends up and find out what a square or squiggle even means. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to leave a review or share it on Instagram, and tune in next week for another episode.